Hi, my name's Richard Sharp, and today we're going to be going over an exercise called the Inchworm. And so this is actually a warm-up exercise that you're going to do before you go into your actual strength training program for the day. And so the Inchworm exercise is great because you can do a whole lot of things with it. It's a base exercise or a base warm-up that you can add a lot of variations to in order to adapt or form around whatever program you have for the day, whatever part of the body you're going to be exercising. This warm-up can be adjusted in order to be used for that. And so what's great about the Inchworm is already by itself, just the base version, it actually does work a lot, starting in the lower body but going all the way up to the upper body. And so it's going to be starting in your calf muscles, which include the soleus, the gastrocnemius, going to the front of your calf or your shin with your anterior tibialis. It's going to work your hamstrings, which include your bicep femoris, your semimembranosus, and your semitendinosus as well. It's going up to your glutes or your gluteus maximus, and all the way up to your back from top to bottom is your erector spinae. And so there's a bunch of muscles included in that. And so there's a whole bunch of muscles being worked just in this base version of the Inchworm, and then you can add other things to make it more upper body emphasized. And so you could add a push-up to it, you could add a twist to it, and I'll show you how you could do those things when we get to that. And so the purpose of this exercise, like I said, is that it's a base. It's a great exercise that can be used for anything. It's because it's so adaptable, but also it's going to teach you some basic movements that you're going to use in a lot of lower body exercises. So for the Inchworm, you're going to start, feet just about shoulder width apart, legs straight, and you're going to start just with a hip hinge and a lean forward. And so you want to think about whenever you see somebody bow, right? In a lot of Eastern countries, you bow for respect, you bow just as a greeting, and they don't just lean straight forward or else they would fall off balance, they would fall forward. The same concept obviously applies here. Your hips have to hinge back while you lean forward. So you're going to push your hips back, keep your back straight, and hinge forward for the start of this exercise. And so a big thing, remember that bow, remember that your back stays straight, your hips go back, and then you're going to try to keep your knees straight as well, and you're going to try to get your hands all the way to the ground. Inevitably, unless you're super flexible, your knees are going to have to bend a little bit. My knees are probably actually going to bend more than a normal athlete should. That's because I am recovering from a hamstring injury, so my hamstrings are more tight than a normal person's, and because of that, it's going to cause my knees to bend more. But you want to keep your legs as straight as possible. You want to keep your back completely straight, and you're going to go all the way to the ground from this position, and you're going to touch the ground, trying to keep your back straight, trying to keep your legs straight. And you also want to try to drive your heels into the ground and keep your heels on the ground or close to the ground as long as you can throughout the exercise. And this is because the more you do that, the more your heels are close to the ground as you go through the exercise, the more of those calf muscles you're going to engage, and the more of the hamstring muscles you're going to engage. It's going to help you as you drive your heels into the ground, keep your weight in your hips, and that's what you're going to want to do. So when you get to the ground here, you're going to start to walk forward, and this is where I say you want to keep your weight in your hips. A common mistake that you're going to see, a common error, is athletes lean forward. That's taking all the stretch out of your posterior chain leg muscles. And so you want to keep your weight in your hips, you want to lean back, and you're going to do that by driving your heels into the ground. Try your hardest to keep your heels touching the ground throughout the exercise as long as you can. And so you're going to inch from the start, you're going to inch forward one hand at a time all the way until you can't keep your weight in your hips, and you're going to go kind of to a plank position with your core stabilized, your back continuing to be straight. Once you get to this middle position, you're going to put your weight back in your hips, lean back, and walk with your feet back up to the starting position, and then back up. And so once again, some key points to remember, some key cues to remember through the exercise is to begin, you're going to bow, you're going to push your hips back as you go straight, keeping your back straight. When you go down, you want to drive your hips drive your heels into the ground throughout the entire exercise, right? And try to keep that V shape, that weight in your hips, your heels towards the ground to engage those calves all the way through. Keeping your back straight once you get here, and then you're going to go back to that V. You're getting straight, and then you're going back to the V, bringing your heels back to the ground, and then you walk back up. And so those are a lot of the common errors that you're going to see is athletes leaning forward, not putting their heels through the ground, not putting their weight in their hips. You're going to see athletes a lot of times are going to want to bend their back to go down to the ground because that's a lot easier than keeping your back straight and going down like this. So try to make sure an athlete doesn't bend their back at all. You want to make sure an athlete is keeping their weight in their hips, and you want to try as much as possible to make sure an athlete isn't excessively bending their knees to make that easy either. You want to try to keep that straight, and that's going to emphasize that stretch in the back. And so as I was talking about earlier, that's the base of the inchworm, and what's great about the exercise is how much you can do with it to adapt it. And obviously that's not the point of the exercise itself, but I do want to point that out in the video just so you know the things you can do with it. Is once you get to that middle point of the exercise, when you're pretty much in the plank position, so you go down, you walk out, and you get to this plank position, is where you have freedom to adapt as much as you want to whatever exercise you have for the day. So if it's more of an upper body day or a chest day, you can go to the bottom and then do a push-up and then walk back to the top. If it's like shoulders, or you're going to do more core or whatever, you can stretch your back, you can stretch your sides and do a twist. There's a million things you could do once you get to that position to add and adapt this stretch to whatever exercise program you have for the day. But as far as the inchworm goes, that's about all there is to it, and that's everything you need to know. Thank you.